Recruiting across the SEC is heating up. We will get you caught up with updates from everybody from Georgia to Alabama to A&M to LSU. Locked On SEC and the portal start right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And what is up, everybody? Welcome into a crossover edition, Locked On SEC and the portal. Our buddy Brian Smith is going to join us. Great to have you guys along. Happy 4th of July to everybody out there. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by the Game Time app. Download Game Time, create an account, use our code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. Well, let's welcome in the man of the hour. He is our Locked On Recruiting Insider. He is Brian Smith. And Brian, man, the last week or so, things have absolutely erupted with recruiting. We've got announcements flying out everywhere. I mean, it is red hot right now.
This is the busiest week of the year. There's no doubt about it. And tomorrow, which, you get through the whole weekend. I don't know if I wanted to say one day, but like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, this weekend, if you thought there were a lot already, get ready for this weekend, Chris, because it's going to be a different kind of fireworks. There's going to be a lot more. So got a lot of kids that are really trying to decide between SEC schools. Bama still has more on the board. Like they're on a sickening recruiting run right now. Georgia had like 10 commits in 11 days or 9 and 10 days. I mean, it's crazy, but LSU's run's getting ready to start. If it hasn't already with Trenton Henderson, A&M still in the battle for a top 5 class. It's really wild.
Well, let's jump into it. Let's start with the good. And let's start with Georgia, because they've had a nice run here with a bunch of 4 stars. And we're using the 24/7 Sports Composite. I get it if you an on 3-person, rivals, whatever. But looking at it, James Johnson, a D lineman, top 100 player. Pierre Dean, a D lineman. Chase Calicut, defensive back. Shadarius Tootle, a linebacker. And Joe Lamar, a running back. They have Georgia is just being Georgia right now.
Georgia hit that run. They had, in that stretch I talked about, 5 of the commits they had were defensive linemen out of like 9. I'm like, good luck to everybody else. The lowest kid was a very high upside 3-star kid that was 6'6", 240 or something like that. If that's the lowest guy you have coming in a run, Chris, things are headed in the right direction. So, yeah, it's not really surprising. Georgia is not going away. I know they didn't win it last year, which, Georgia fans, if they don't win it, if the sky is falling. But at the same time, this is a top 10 program on an off year. It's usually top 5 for a reason.
I think autocorrect got me. Jay Lamar is the running back, but regardless, still a ridiculous haul that Kirby's got going. They're sitting at number 2 right now, the number 2 class in the composite. USC sitting there at number 1 at 30, but USC's been sitting there for a while. They racked up a lot of these recruits back months ago, so it feels like USC is just going to fall. Like teams are going to be jumping them here in the coming weeks because more programs are going to be adding big-time recruits, right?
That is pretty much where we're at now. Some of the kids that SC has are really good. Let's see if they hold on to all of them, because a lot of them are from SEC territory, Texas and across the country. Like there's been some of them already that they didn't end up with. A certain linebacker, Xavier Griffin, that ended up at Bama for one. There's a lot of guys like that are still on the board. And I'm sure that the SEC programs are still going to go out to California and try to get some of the recruits, which they've done for a while. I think Texas is the other one. They, depending, again, like you said, whichever network you want to go by, they're just outside the top 10 in some of the rankings, but they've been holding out for the big fish. That's the best way to do it. It's not where you are in June and July, Chris. It's where you are in December. And Sark and Texas are being very patient. They just got another really good linebacker today, and they're trending in the right direction. Don't see the horns in the top 10. Don't think that's going to last long. That's another one to watch out for.
Let's take a look at Alabama, because I've been getting text all week from my Bama friends going, "We're back, baby." It started with 5-star edge Xavier Griffin, the number 1 edge, number 8 national player, 5-star wide receiver Sadarian Morgan. We've talked about him multiple times on this show. Number 2 wide receiver in the country, number 11 recruit in the country. They both picked Bama. Then you got a 4-star tight end in Max Sutter. He's a top 100 recruit. Xavier Crowell, 4-star running back, he's a top 100 recruit. And then they added a couple 3-stars in linebacker, Zay Hall, and wide receiver Owen Cabell. But that is pretty premier there for Kalen DeBoer. 4-loss season last year in year one in Alabama, but man, the recruits don't seem to care about that.
Bama's done a great job this year of maximizing their official visits. They've hit the home area better, Georgia and Alabama, and then they've dipped into some of the other areas that their staff has some familiarity with out west. But it's much more southeast based, like you would expect an Alabama class to be. And right now they're cleaning Auburn's clock in state. They're getting a few kids out of Georgia that are really good. There's really no way this doesn't end up in the top 10. And I'd say it's a pretty good chance to end up top 5. If everything lines up right, Bama could end up with the top class in the country.
Yeah, it's just an amazing job by that staff. And I think, the offensive players, Ryan Grubb has certainly helped that coming in as the new OC. I think, Ryan Williams coming in and being an instant impact wide receiver as young as he was, I think is kind of attracting a lot of players as well. So certainly they got to win on the field. And if Kalen DeBoer wins on the field this year, it's only going to help sustain this Bama, dominance in recruiting and everything else. The other big SEC program that's really been making waves, and look, it's funny a couple years ago because they had Jimbo Fisher, they had the number 1 recruiting class, which, they quote unquote bought. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, they must have learned their lesson there. Well, no, like if a school has a lot of money and boosters with a lot of money like A&M, they're going to keep putting resources into it. And so A&M picking up some big time recruits, and Tristan Givens, number 3 athlete in the country, Brandon Arrington, number 2 athlete in the country, both 5-stars. And then this past week, getting DeQueeves Beck, 4-star linebacker, number 9 linebacker in the country, and then a couple of offensive linemen. Again, this is Mike Elko going to work. He had a great year 1 there in College Station, and they're building off that success.
Brandon Arrington's a kid that's run 10.27 in the 100 meters. The only question with him is, where do you place him? Corner, receiver, running back, whatever he wants. Tristan Givens is a kid that I know. He lives in Columbus, Georgia. Elite pass rusher, but he's also a really good wide receiver. So they're getting a lot of very athletic kids, and they'll figure it out. Obviously, Elko is a really good football coach, and they're starting to get some of the Texas kids now. They started out with more out-of-state guys, but now they're getting the Lone Star kids, and that's kind of their bread and butter, East Texas and all over Dallas, Houston. This is another class that should end in the top 10, and it's possible top 5.
Let's take a look at some of the other big recruits that recently recruited this week. You have LSU picking up that big 5-star edge in Trenton Henderson, number 4 edge in the country, number 28 national recruit. Again, this is on the 24/7 Sports Composite. And then Florida picking up a 4-star D lineman in Kendall Gorval, number 12 D lineman. And then South Carolina picking up a 4-star D lineman in Noah Clark, the number 21 defensive lineman. So some big-time players there making some big announcements and coming to some SEC schools.
This is what the SEC is known for, Chris, the defensive lineman. Henderson was recruited nationally. Michigan wanted him in every school up north, and USC's and all those kinds of programs. He stays on the I-10 corridor and heads to LSU. He's from Pensacola. Kendall Gorville stays in state, commits to Florida. Texas almost got him. He's from Fort Myers High, and then Noah Clark, kid out of Durham, North Carolina. South Carolina dips in there and takes another one out of the Belichick area. I tell you what, South Carolina, like that run they had last year with the pass rushers and everything, I think it's starting to pay off. They're getting some recruits that they probably wouldn't normally get.
Yeah, and of course, Dylan Stewart was the big one last year, and instant impact player, and he's got 2 more years there at South Carolina. Certainly will be fun to watch. I'm curious, just you've covered recruiting a long time. We've kind of have an evolution. We used to list defensive ends and outside linebackers. Is edge kind of just that hybrid spot in what it is now?
That's a great way to put it, because Xavier Griffin, let's just use him. He committed to Alabama recently. That kid, when you watch his film, he could line up anywhere. Sometimes it's as an outside linebacker. Sometimes it's inside linebacker. Sometimes he comes from depth. Kids like that, I don't know how you name a position. Now, in high school, you can get away with moving kids around a little more. He'll probably need to be a little more stable. But if you're that athletic and that gifted in terms of your ability to read plays, I guess you can move him around, and maybe he plays backer on one play and puts his hand in the dirt on the next. I guess edge is the kind of the new thing. Plus, these teams are running hybrid 3-man fronts, then they go to 4 on the next down. So it's hard for the poor guy that's the scorekeeper. I know that, because where he lines up or where he starts, that's not where they're at on the next play. So it doesn't matter. But Edge is the term that I've been hearing the most over the last few years, so I'm just going to stick with it.
And for the real old heads, I mean, I remember following recruiting when quarterbacks were separated into, oh, he's the number 2 running quarterback. Oh, he's the number 3 pocket passer. At least we put all the quarterbacks together now, but it used to be 2 separate quarterback categories.
Well, I think most of the kids now, for the most part, there are a few exceptions. If you're not at least semi-mobile, you ain't playing, because the defenses are so darn athletic, especially the Southeastern Conference. Think about it right now in the SEC. How many pure pocket passers are going to start this year? Is there one? I mean, even like Arch can run.
LSU even said recently that they want Garrett Nussmeier to run more this year. And it's like, yeah, you cannot be a statue back there. You have to be able to move. So it's just evolution of recruiting, man. It's just interesting how far we've come. All right, more to come here with Brian Smith. When we return, we'll hit on some other schools that are getting red hot right now, right here on a Locked On SEC and Portal crossover edition. But first, I want to remind you guys, today's episode presented to you by our friends at Game Time. And look, we've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping. And that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop as you get closer to showtime, so you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. And, of course, we tell you guys all the time, football season right around the corner. You're thinking of getting those last-minute football tickets, Game Time is a great place to do it. Go take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with the Game Time app. You download Game Time, you create an account, and if you've never used them before, you use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege. That will get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem our code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Get $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And we dive back into it, talking all things recruiting with our Locked On Recruiting Insider, Brian Smith, crossover edition, Locked On SEC and the Portal. And Brian, let's take a look at some of the other recruits that made decisions this week. Let's start with wide receiver Denarius Gray, 3-star on 24/7, 4-star on 3. He commits to Kentucky, but he flipped from Auburn. And man, it just we'll get into Auburn in a little bit, but a big get there for Kentucky because Mark Stoops, man, we've been talking about the coaches on the hot seat. It's hard to get big time recruits.
Yeah, that was a surprise because that's a kid that has been nationally recruited. Gray's got offers all around the country. Big pickup for Kentucky. Good for them. Hopefully they can throw the ball a little better. They got a young quarterback that's got a gun. I don't know if he'll be the starter yet, but by the time Denarius gets to campus, he should be. It'd be good to see Kentucky throw the ball around some. I remember back in the day, they used to throw it all over the place. Hal Mummy. Obviously, Stoops is a little more ground and pound. We'll see what they do with kids like Gray, because that's a kid that's playing at Chaminade Madonna, the same high school Jeremiah Smith's from. They're well coached. He will be a little more advanced than most kids. So big pickup for Wildcats. Good for them.
Let's take a look at a couple other guys. 4-star cornerback C.J. Hester commits to Florida. 4-star linebacker Kosi Akpala committed to Texas. And 4-star linebacker J.J. Bush committed to Arkansas. So, again, big-time playmakers there.
Yeah, this is a great group. Hester is a kid from Cocoa, Florida. It's not that far from the Gainesville area and where the University of Florida is at. They've been trending for him for a while. Long, lean kid that all of us in the media that worked in Florida knew about when he was a freshman. Big pickup for the Gators. Paul is a kid from Maid Creek, just outside of Houston. It's more your area. He was a national recruit. He's a thumper, 230-pounder. This is the kind of kids you expect the SEC to get this time of year. Not a lot of shocks, but that's the point. That's why Texas and Florida, et cetera, keep rolling. So, and then Bush, that was a little surprise. I know LSU thought they were going to get him, but there's a long way to go to National Signing Day too, Chris. Let's see what happens there.
Ole Miss, they picked up a 3-star defensive back, Iverson McCoy. He had interest from programs like Auburn and Arkansas. I just bring it up because it's a little odd. I don't know, with Lane Kiffin and all his success he's had there at Ole Miss, it seems like they've just prioritized that portal so much more than they have in-house recruiting. It's not that they've recruited poorly. It's just they're not signing top 5, top 10 recruiting classes. They're doing that in the portal.
it's everybody's opinion on how they want to build a roster. And I don't know if Kiffin will eventually get to the point where it's dominant for high school, but they've done it a little more this year, especially in the trenches. But this is a young man from Tupelo. He's a kid that, like, that whole family's very athletic. His cousin just committed to Florida. I would imagine that they're going to do better in state. Like, they've made that more a priority this year. But you're right, Chris. Like, top 10 class for Ole Miss, and the portal is nothing. Like, they expect to be in the top 5. Like, they are the portal king. They're really, really good at it. And for whatever reason, Kiffin can really evaluate kids for his program. So more hats off to him than anything else. But it would be better, I think, long-term if they could switch over to at least some more of the high school kids.
Let's take a look at the latest recruiting rankings. And this is our Friday show, so this could certainly change as more names come in. But taking a look at it, Georgia sitting with the number 2 class, A&M number 4, Alabama number 6. Just outside the top 10, you got LSU 13, Texas 14, Florida 15, Tennessee 16. And then outside the top 20, Arkansas 22, Mississippi State actually coming in strong at 32 with 24 commits. There's Ole Miss at 34, Oklahoma at 40, Vanderbilt sitting there at 49 with 15 recruits. And then outside of that, you got Kentucky 50, South Carolina 52, Missouri at 76. Auburn we'll get to next segment. So leave Auburn out, but what stands out from the rest of this list, Brian?
Well, I think a lot of this is pretty much what you would expect, right? Except for, like you just mentioned, Auburn. We'll talk about that in a minute. But I want to give a little prop to Arkansas. They've had a coach that's been on the hot seat, yet they got 25 commitments right now. Chris, how does that work? I don't understand that. But recruiting is wild. So hats off to the Hogs. They've had their best class in quite some time. And then you mentioned, how about Mississippi State? 24 guys in the boat already for the Bulldogs. I did not see that coming either. So maybe the only thing, and I hate picking at them, but like, I'm surprised that South Carolina only has 10 commitments. They've went big game hunting to a certain degree, but I thought they'd be a little ahead of that because they were on the cusp of the college football playoff last year. I know there's a long way to go, but I thought South Carolina would be up a little bit further.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And you talked about it earlier. Texas, they were the number 1 class last year with with the class that they signed under Sark. And so you got to think they got more moves coming that's going to put them, move them up. And I got to think there's a chance, Brian, when this is all said and done, it feels like Georgia, A&M, Bama, LSU, and Texas all finish in the top 10, I feel like.
I think that would be a pretty safe bet. It wouldn't surprise me if you threw the Gators in there too. They're still in on quite a few kids. That's possible. It's not out of the realm that Tennessee could get in there as well. So 6, I think conservatively will finish. Oregon, Ohio State, Notre Dame are probably 3 others. Then like the last spot, it just kind of depends. But this is a really competitive year, just like it always is. So now it's just like one player here or there moves you up a couple of spots because it's that close.
I saw another commitment that just happened this week. 5-star offensive tackle Emmanuel Iheanacho committed to Oregon, had offers from LSU and Penn State and others. What is it with Oregon? Because it's just funny to me that they really haven't won on the field in recent years. Like they've had good seasons. They made the playoff, but like they haven't, it's not like they've played for a title or won a championship. Is it just all that Nike money and Dan Lanning's just selling, hey, come compete here?
The biggest thing is the uniforms. And I'm not kidding. The kids, they don't like them. They love them. That stuff matters. And I know people middle-aged and older get mad and throw things at the TV when they hear that stuff. Kids do not pick the logo on the shirt. They pick the coaches that recruit them and the glitz and the glamour. That's what it is, fair or not. And Oregon does it better than anybody, man. I mean, their facilities are like, if you're bored, go on to your favorite platform for video and type in Oregon football locker room. That's all I'm going to say. Kids love that stuff, and their stadium, they got great fan base, but the uniforms and all that, they just love it. And half the kids I talked to, like I was just at Future 50 down at Under Armour's event for all these underclassmen, every other kid mentioned Oregon. And some of these kids are far East Coast, Florida, Georgia, Oregon, like top 3. It's wild.
Yeah, Dan Lanning just seems like that's the perfect job for him. He is a showman, and he will sell kids on that. I've had people say it is hard to fly into Eugene, Oregon. It's not like Southwest just flies there every hour, so it's a tough place to get to. But hey, look, uniforms. Tennessee just announced their big smoke gray uniforms, and everybody was going nuts for that this week. So it matters. All right, when we return here on a Locked On SEC crossover edition with the portal, we will find out what the hell is going on at Auburn. We'll discuss that coming up next. All right, run along here, Locked On, all things recruiting. Chris Gordy and Brian Smith, Locked On SEC and the portal crossover show here. And Brian, look, we talked about it. We showed you the recruiting rankings, and it is wild. I just need to preface this by saying Hugh Freeze, since he's been on the Plains, signed back-to-back top 10 classes the past 2 years. And so when we look at the rankings and see Auburn is sitting at 90th, only 6 recruits, and there are reports that Hugh Freeze is spending all his time out on the golf course. I'm not trying to take shots here, but what is going on at Auburn?
Nothing good. I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and say the first thing that we mentioned a minute ago. I know Denarius Gray, good player, is recruited nationally. Auburn got him early. They had a connection to him through one of the coaches on the staff. It's one thing for him to flip to another SEC school, but Kentucky, a team that doesn't throw the ball. I mean, I got some messages and some comments from some people when that happened. I'm like, oh boy, this is not going to sit well. And they lost Shadarius Tootle. He flipped to Georgia, and they just lost Sadarian Morgan. I was at his announcement yesterday. They led for him, in my opinion, early on in the process. 5-star receiver that lives 55 minutes from Jordan-Hare Stadium. He's going all the way across the state to Alabama. I mean, they're just
Devin Carter flipped to Florida State, right?
Yep. The receiver they had committed, he said he'd shut it down, and 3 days later or something like that, he committed to Florida State. I'm like, that's not a good sign. Florida State just won 2 games. Okay, that's not a good sign. And on top of it, I think they're going to lose Anthony Jones to Bama. At one point, they led for him, and he just announced his top 3, A&M, Oregon, there's that school again, and Bama. Auburn didn't even make the final 3. That was a kid they prioritized, maybe the top pass rusher in Alabama, kid out of Mobile. Like, they're just struggle busing here. And I've also heard there's a possibility of another kid committed right now jumping off the boat. So, I mean, I don't know what's going on, but it's all headed south. And I don't know what's going on. I have no idea.
Here's what I've heard. And again, this is the interesting dynamics of this new age of college football, is that so much of the money that they have is invested into the current roster, in portal guys and all this. In other words, they spend all their resources on getting NIL deals for the current guys, revenue share for the current guys, portal guys and all this. And it's like, oh yeah, we don't have much left for recruiting. And I'm sure Butch Joe, over on the basketball side of things, Butch is coming in and saying, hey, we need ours for basketball. Baseball's putting their hand in the pot. Like, I don't know. It's just an interesting dynamic on, like, did they plan this right? Because I know every school is having to go through this right now on how are we allocating what money where.
I've heard similar, but if they're boosters, and I get it, like their basketball program right now, that basketball program is legit. If their boosters don't have money right now, it could really cost them long term. Because this season's a big deal, but that schedule's not easy. They got to play Bama and Georgia. They still got to go to Oklahoma, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to be a tough slate. If they struggle on the field this year, and of course, they're starting terrible here in recruiting, this recruiting class is going to come home to roost. And it's like the people are going to be antsy. They better win 8 games this fall, or it's going to get rocky at the end. So I'm a little bit worried for Auburn. And that staff has been really good at recruiting. You're right. They had 2 top 10 classes. It's the same guys. So I don't know what else it could be besides that, but they got to win some games this year, Chris, or it's the bottom is flat out going to fall out.
My apologies. Bruce Pearl, basketball, Butch Thompson, baseball. All these names, my wires are getting crossed here with names. All right. So a couple of undecideds still to make decisions. You mentioned Anthony Tank Jones. He's down to Alabama, A&M, and Oregon. He will make a decision soon. How about four-star edge KJ Ford? I heard he's down to Florida, A&M, and Ohio State. Out of Duncanville, has been a lot of big Duncanville kids, but 6'4" edge. Any intel on KJ Ford?
I know that Bama felt good about him, but like you mentioned, rightfully so a little bit ago, like A&M's doing well. That's an in-state kid for them. They recruit Duncanville hard. I wouldn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like that's a tough recruitment. Everybody and their brother has been after that kid, national recruit, defensive lineman, and arguably the best public school football program in the United States. So that's a really big recruitment. Wouldn't want to bet against any of those schools, really. That's 3 premier programs for a top guy. So maybe the best player left in Texas, not named Felix Ojo, that's on the board. And he's a kid that can change your class.
How about 3 kids set to make this weekend? So we'll know next week where they're going to end up. But there's a 5-star Ray Edwards. I know he's got Georgia, Alabama, A&M, Florida, and Auburn. I mean, basically the whole SEC on his list. There's a D lineman, Bryce Perry Wright. He's got Texas and Texas A&M. And then there's a 5-star corner, Chauncey Kennan, who's got Georgia, Florida, LSU, among others. So 3 kids set to make announcements this weekend, all with SEC ties.
I'm pretty sure Chauncey's going to pick Florida State. He's a big Florida State fan. Georgia prioritized him early, but they got somebody else in mind if they don't get him. The other kids, Bryce Perry Wright, A&M or Clemson is what I've heard. The Jackson kid, like, I have no idea where that kid's going. I can't keep up with him. That one, I have no idea. That's a tough call.
Yeah, let me give you this. So Jere Edwards, 24/7 has him crystal ball 100% to Alabama.
Edwards,
yeah. Chauncey Kennan, Florida State, 100% crystal ball. And then Bryce Perry Wright, 100% crystal ball to Clemson. So those are all kind of, we'll see if those decisions hold. But
I saw somebody on a message board pick A&M. They made a late charge at Bryce Perry Wright for whatever that's worth. I don't know how much validity there is to that, but in today's world, would it surprise you if A&M found a way to get somebody late? It would me.
Until Hayes Fawcett puts out the graphic, it's all still undecided.
Right.
He is Brian Smith, of course. So we appreciate his time every week joining us here for a crossover edition, talking all things SEC recruiting, Locked On SEC, and the portal. And hey, for your second listen, you could check out either of our shows. Of course, Brian's got you covered with all the latest with recruiting and moving and shaking through the portal and everything else. But thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Brian, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you guys next week.